Your video is delayed, but whatever.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. This is our weekly show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central. I'm Laura Rogers, and this is our team of SharePoint consultants from Rackspace Hosting. If you've never been to Power Hour before, Power Hour is all about what you can do in SharePoint and Office 365 without necessarily doing any programming or doing any hardcore server admin. This is our 102nd episode. We've got a lot of episodes here on our YouTube channel, SharePoint RAX, and they're all recorded. We do them live so that we can have more interaction with you guys. But there are a whole plethora of them out there now, and the gist is, so today we usually just do kind of whatever demos we feel like doing and just talk about something in SharePoint. Today I'm going to do data view web parts. We'll go ahead and a little bit of information, especially if you've never been to one of these. We've got where it streams live in YouTube and in a Google Hangout. And if you're watching it in YouTube and you want to participate in the Q&A, you can click the little yellow button on the YouTube to take you over to the Google Hangout version. In the Google Hangout, there is going to be a little icon with some squares at the top right. And by default, it will show you what's called the Showcase app over on the right, which has got links that we share with you. But if you click the little icon with the squares, that will let you flip over to the Q&A app. And the Q&A app is where you can ask us questions as we go. So we encourage you to participate and chime in and ask questions. I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and then I'll be back to me, and I'll be doing the demo today and kind of give you a little background on that. And while everybody's introducing themselves, I'll be finishing up what I was going to demo. So Corey, then Kevin, then Ryan, then Tanya, then Tavis.
All right, so like my lower third says, I'm Corey Emmons. I do SharePoint out-of-the-box workflows and all sorts of things. Programming is not necessarily my thing, though I have been playing with PowerShell lately, and that's fun. I've been doing SharePoint for about 10 years now, and grew up through the versions starting with 2003. Yeah.
And good morning. My name is Kevin Hughes. I'm based out of Kansas City, and I'm the SharePoint architect here on Laura's team. My duties are wide and varied, and pretty much whatever is necessary to get the job done, but mostly making sure that the needs of our clients are met and working with the rest of our team to make that happen.
Hi everybody, I'm Ryan Keller. I'm based out of northern Colorado and have been working with SharePoint for about 8 years now. 6 of those years have been doing SharePoint consulting, and about 4 of those have been doing SharePoint branding almost exclusively. So I'm the branding guy on the team, so I make SharePoint look a little bit different.
I'm Tanya Kaiser, and I'm based at Rackspace headquarters in San Antonio, Texas. So I've been working with SharePoint for 3 years or so, and for the last year, I've been the manager for our internal SharePoint environments here at Rackspace. So everything from legacy SharePoint migrations to the typical end-user support items, I get to see all of it.
Hey, I'm Tavis Lovell, and I'm based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I am the BI developer on the team. So I've been working with business intelligence since about 2005 in different areas, things like reporting services, Performance Point, Power Pivot, Excel services, those types of things.
All righty, thanks guys. Okay, so I had an echo. Is it gone?
It's gone.
All right. I turned it on my other computer, so now you see 2 of me. That's just so that when I'm doing my demo on Data View Web Parts in a few minutes, that I can demo it and share my screen and still be sharing my video. So let me see real quick. There's kind of a delay on one of me. All right. Background here, Data View Web Parts. Back like in 2008 or so, I was digging into Data View Web Parts, and the company I used to work for, this is back in SharePoint 2007, and I was figuring out like just custom business solutions and customizing lists and customizing forms as data view web parts using SharePoint Designer. And I did a whole bunch of little videos like that back in the day, a little just showing how to do different types of things in data view web parts. And there's actually a link on my blog on the right that says data view web part videos or something. Those are all very old. They're mostly done in SharePoint 2007. A lot of this concepts still exist though, and through 2010, it just interface had a few different little places that you had to get to things, but the concepts were still there. And then when SharePoint Designer 2013 came out, they removed the design view from SharePoint Designer, so that made it a lot more difficult to do data view web part, because now when you go in there to try and customize a list or do something like you used to be able to do, it basically is just it's just code. You're just looking at code, and it's much harder to kind of figure out what's where and how to get around. And there's still a couple of things though. Now, client-side rendering is the new thing, and I talked about JS Link in another SharePoint Power Hour. JS Link is another way that you can do things like conditional formatting and display things a certain way in forms, which involves JavaScript. And that's something else that we've touched on, is another way to do kind of things that we're used to be doing as data view web parts. But there are also just a couple of little things in there that you want to be able to do real quick that is not necessarily just conditional formatting. So, like for example, sometimes you might want to go add a parameter to a certain list view in SharePoint, or you might want to go add a hyperlink to a column that you want to be, a button or something, a little bit more custom like that, that you can do as client-side rendering with JS Link. But there are also still a couple of ways that you can do this stuff using SharePoint Designer. So I'm going to show you how to kind of fumble your way blindly through, fly blind in SharePoint Designer to be able to do these things. So one example that I'm going to use is passing a parameter to a list. That means that you might have a list of items in SharePoint, and you want to be able to quickly send someone to that same list with just, that's just filtered down by a certain value. Well, you could create views. So we can always just go create views in our SharePoint list that have, you could go create, if you had like a list of company policies or something, and each policy had a department name, you could go in and create a view with a filter for department name equals IT, and then another view with a filter for department name equals HR, and you could manually go through and create a bunch of filtered views. But then if you use this concept called a parameter, you could just send that parameter, just the name of whatever the department is, to like one view, and then it would just instantaneously filter it by that word. And that way, like, think about going forward if you needed to modify your view or add columns to it or something, columns to like 20 different, and modify 20 different separate filtered views, you could pass a parameter to one magical view. And we do parameters a lot with when we're doing any kind of dashboards and things like that. When I went over my HR onboarding process concept that I did like 6-7 power hours on, I talked about how you could pass a parameter to a dashboard page and then use the query string filter web part to pass parameters. So putting a parameter directly in a list, though, is just another way to accomplish that. And especially for people who might not have the enterprise version of SharePoint, you might not have the set of filter web parts that come with the enterprise version of SharePoint, so you don't have the ability to use the query string filter web part to pass a parameter or a filter to things on a page. So I'll go ahead and a couple of examples I have today is a list of travel requests and a list of travel types. So I'm going to use that as an example of a way that you can pass parameters and just kind of think out of the box, think of, let your mind expand to different scenarios where you might want to be able to do something similar to that. So I just want to use some lists that I have on my site that are super simple, just custom lists, and not have anything crazy with all different types of list templates and all different types of complicated columns. So I was going to try to use just something fairly simple, just so none of that other stuff gets in the way. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. And make it so that y'all let me know, I guess, if somebody says something in the Q&A, because I won't really necessarily be able to see it. Okay, I'm going to close what I had open in SharePoint Designer and go to my site. Okay, and then I can share it. All right, I got to change my resolution, right? I noticed in Windows 10 that they changed the whole, but this isn't Windows 10, but I noticed, by the way, that they changed the whole concept of resolution. It doesn't even, it looks completely different now. And it's just basically a button that says bigger or smaller. I guess they kind of dumbed it down because people didn't know what resolution was or something. All right, so that's the Bing image of the day. And, oops, let's see. Hold on. There we go. All right, so y'all can see that deer, and I'll go ahead and pull up my site. Got it? Y'all can see my site, and you can see me. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put on my screen share so it stays on that. Okay. Because when I talk, I don't want it to flip over to the other me down there. Okay, travel request site. I have this corporate travel site, and I have travel requests, and I have trip types. So one thing that I want to do is, you can see I started playing around and testing this. I have a few different trip types. So the trip type in my travel request right now is a drop-down box. And it's basically a lookup field over to my trip types separate list. Now, I was talking about showing you this when I show you this as a demo, trying to simplify it and make it not complicated and not involve all kinds of crazy different field types. So what I want to do is not use a lookup field in this demo so that you can see just how this functions. And then if we wanted to use different types of fields, it's going to get more tricky and it's going to get more complicated. But I want to show you this actually working. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, show you sort of what the result is going to look like. The result is going to be, I want to let someone pick a trip type, and when they pick a trip type, say I want to create a new trip from this trip type and have a button that they can click. And then it would take them to the trip type form to fill out a new trip, to go on a new trip, and it would automatically have the trip type filled in. So hopefully you guys can see, think of some examples that you might have where you would need to pass a parameter like that. Like think about having information about a project at the top of the screen as a web part, and then have another web part at the bottom that's add a new project charter information about this project, and it would just pass the information about whatever that new item is having to do with that project, so that when the person goes to fill out the other form, they're not having to fill out the project again. So if you start from the project and you go to create a new charter information, that would pass the project name. Does that make sense? So kind of think about things like that. This is a very common thing that it seems like that people like to be able to do. I actually wrote a blog post. It is, let's see, right here, pass the default value from a web part page to a new item, and I've got several other blog posts that are similar. I have several blog posts about query strings as well. So we'll go ahead and put that in the showcase too. Real quick. All right. So I kind of wanted to show you this, so I can show you. This is something I did in 2010. So what I'm really kind of showing you now is just the way to do it in 2013. So I think I just shared it in the showcase. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a parameter that does a query string to just send it to a list of stuff. So let's see, I'm going to use just something simple. I'm going to use just the destination field because I know that's just a plain old text field. It's just a word, right? So maybe I want to say, filter it by all the times that people went to Austin. So I'm going to put several different items, like a couple of different items in here that have Austin as the destination. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create a parameter that I can send quickly to this list that will automatically show me whatever word I'm sending in the parameter. All right, now the trick here is that if I go and try and open up this view in SharePoint Designer, it's not going to give me the ability to add a parameter to it or anything resembling that. So if I go, let me show you what that would look like. If I go to travel requests and I go to kind of show you the experience of what you might have seen before when you might have tried this already. So I'm opening up just a view in 2013 in SharePoint Designer, and you can see this is very ugly, right? And if I try to go in here, it's like it hardly gives me any information. I don't have any information about a data view web part or the ability to do anything with a parameter, right? It's kind of messy. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new view. I'm going to call it Old School. And what I'm going to do here is go to the style and just change it to a basic table, basically something other than default. Okay, so I'll just do basic table. And there are a few negative things to that, of course. When I change the style to something other than the default, I lose the ability to flip between views here. Like all that stuff that was at the top of my view, like remember this, all this stuff right here? We talked about this actually in a power hour before. But all this stuff up here, the ability to go between views, the ability to find an item, when I create that old school view, you lose that whole thing. So I usually just create this old school view when I need to do something very specific with it, like pass a parameter. And you'll notice it'll look very different. Or if I want to just use a view like this maybe in a web part instead, like instead of in the list itself, it'll look very different when I open it up in SharePoint Designer. So I'll go ahead and refresh that. And let's see. Nabil says, slightly off topic, would it be possible to use a parameter with a picture slideshow web part to drive the view that the web part shows? I wouldn't use the picture slideshow web part for that. I would use the new content search web part and use some of the new picture stuff in it and then read the blog post I wrote on how to pass a query string to the content search web part. Tip of the day, yeah. What is taking so long? This is shared. This is Office 365, so it's of course it's taken forever, right? Whenever I'm doing a demo. Okay, any day now. So I'm refreshing it because when I make changes in SharePoint in the browser, and I already have SharePoint Designer open, SharePoint Designer doesn't necessarily know that what I added or changed. So I usually have to go in here and refresh it so that it will recognize that. But when I go to I can get lists and libraries to go ahead and load. Good Lord. It will give me a whole different interface. So the trick here is that anything that for your view settings that is not the default view, that's going to be just what I call the old school view. And it's going to look completely different when you open it up in SharePoint Designer. Did y'all know this? This is huge. Of course, SharePoint 2013 has been out for couple of years now, and it's one of those things that I just didn't really delve into before, so I didn't realize it. All right, notice this. Look at this up here. This is huge. This is the data view web part, little tool pane and ribbon stuff that I'm used to seeing in previous versions of SharePoint, and it's just because I'm using a different type of view. I can do several things in here, like I can do settings that I can also do in the browser, like the paging and like adding or removing columns, I can also do those in the browser. If I want to do filtering by more than 2 things, though, I can do that here. So when you're in the browser and you're trying to, like, no, it's not the filter, it's the sorting and grouping. The filter lets you do quite a few in the browser, but the sorting and grouping, it's pretty limited in the browser, and it lets you add multiple levels of sorting and grouping in here. So it's just another one of the things that you have in this interface. You also have folder scope is like whether you want it to, like if you're in a library that has a bunch of folders or something, whether you want it to show all the files and just not show the folders. All right, so what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go to parameters, and I'm going to add a parameter, and I'm going to call it destination. Destination parameter, and do destination. All right, so now I have created a parameter, but once I create a parameter, I need the list to be filtered by that parameter, right? So just creating the parameter is not going to do anything magical. So then I got to go to filtering here and say, I have to kind of match up the actual field I want to be filtered to, you know, be talking to the parameter here. Description contains, no, not description, sorry, destination. I picked the wrong one. Destination equals, and then this is where it's actually going to have my destination parameter right here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save that. And go back to my travel request list, and I'll refresh this, and it's going to look the same. It's not going to look the same because it's filtering now, but I can do like question mark destination equals Austin. And now, whoa, yay, golf clap. It's showing me a quick filtered list of items of, you know, that are Austin. Destination is Austin. Now, where this link would come from, and I've had, you know, a lot of different sort of custom business solutions that we've done this in many different ways. You guys in the room, you guys can shout it out to think of different ways that we've done this in the past, but one of them would be to create a custom hyperlink on, like, if you have like a list of cities or something like that. It's just another list in SharePoint, and make it so that when you click that city, it takes you to this particular view, or have a dashboard that's got multiple other things related to Austin, where destination equals Austin is passing that information to several different lists, all on that same web part page. Can y'all think of some other than what I just mentioned? Anybody?
Well, I use it from an interactive map, where the interactive map will, you know, have hyperlink. You click on a state and you have it show these destinations in the map, and then you can click on one and come up with the query string URL.
Yeah, and you demoed that in the last Power Hour, right? Or 1 or 2 Power Hours ago? Some of that? No? You did?
I have no memory of such thing.
Oh, okay. You demoed your map, but it was related to something different. But okay, I'm gonna show what that could look like. So I'll go ahead and add an app. I'm gonna create a custom list real quick, and I'm gonna call it locations. And of course, you could have like city and state and all these different things. I'm just going to make it super simple, and I'm just going to put a word in there. So I'll just put like Austin, and oh, of course I could have gone into datasheet view, huh? I'll just put a couple more in there real quick, just for fun. Birmingham. San Antonio. There, that's good. Random list of cities. Okay. So then you would want to, if you wanted, you could have a column here that would just have a hyperlink in it that would take you to that custom dashboard or custom view. You could do something really fancy. You could have, another way would be to have a custom action here that would take you to a certain view that passes a parameter. We did a whole power hour on custom actions. There's a limitation with custom actions because you can only use like a certain little set of parameters that it gives you, and not just kind of any word that you want to. So that's kind of the nice thing about having this this query string concept and just creating a hyperlink from it, is that you're not as limited as you are with the custom actions. What were some of the things, Corey, that you can do with custom actions? Like you can send the item ID.
Yeah, so you can send the item ID. Where was it? I had it pulled up.
Yeah, you did. It's okay. You just shout it out when you find it. So what I'm going to do in this list real quick is I'm going to create a new column, and I'm going to call it link, custom link or whatever. Whatever you want to call it, button, I don't know. And then I'm going to make it a hyperlink. So first of all, I'm just going to manually put a link in here. So I have that custom view that I created over in my travel site. Where did it go? Oh, it's not in my travel request, is not in my recent anymore. So what I'm going to do real quick is edit links, take travel requests and drag it over here, hit save. That's a quick way of adding it to the quick launch. Go to travel requests, and I just need the link to that view. See right here? So I'm going to take that and copy it, and then I'm going to go over to my locations list and just manually, I'm just going to manually add a link for now, just to show you the concept. Question mark destination equals Austin. And that's very ugly, so hold on, let me.
And you can add, let's see, you can put list ID in there as a parameter. You can put the site URL, source URL, different things like that.
Okay. So in this one, I would just want it to be the word. I want it to be the name of the thing, and like the title. That isn't one of the options that you can do in the custom action. So here's what I did. I just manually created a hyperlink, and watch this. I'll click it, and look at that. It takes me to this filtered list of items that are for Austin. So hopefully I'll get the gist. Now I could create a workflow that creates a hyperlink automatically when I create a new location. That would just say, it just would put the name of, the title of whatever the item is as part of that URL right here. I think I actually wrote a whole blog post about how to configure a hyperlink through a workflow, how to make it look a certain way. There are certain amount of things that I want to show in this demo, but I don't want to go off on too many tangents. So the concept here is that you could have a hyperlink field, and you can make it so that the workflow generates the hyperlink. And if I don't want users to interact with that hyperlink, I could hide that field from the form. So they're going to see it in the view, and they're going to be able to click on it, but they're not going to be able to fill it out when they're filling out the form. So I can do that by turning on content types and just going to that, whatever that content type is in here, go to custom link and hide it. We did a whole bunch of this type of stuff with content types in my HR onboarding set of videos as well. So now when someone goes to add a location to this list, they're just typing the name of the location, and then the workflow could generate the hyperlink. Another thing that you could do would be to create like a data view web part of this list and make it so the hyperlink is just something that is displayed in the data view web part based on a field in here, but is not necessarily the hyperlink itself isn't necessarily a field. I might be able to get into that in this demo. We'll see if we have time at the end.
Laura, I put that blog post in the chat window for you to put in the showcase.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't.
Oh, I did put one of them in there. This is a different one? Okay.
That's the workflow create hyperlink
Oh,
blog.
okay. Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There it is. Okay, so now it's in the showcase. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I showed you how to go open up, create a list using a certain style and then open up that in SharePoint Designer and just quickly add a parameter to it. The next thing I'm going to show you is the ability to create a custom form and be able to pass a parameter to it. Now, I did write a blog post about that, and that's the first one that I did, that first link that I posted. Josh says, and he plans to do a Project Online episode. I don't personally know anything about Project Online, but maybe if any of you guys do, you can. We don't really deal with Project very often, but it's a good idea. We'll keep it in mind. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is create a custom form. So as in the new form, so that I can pass a parameter to it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll create a custom page first. I'm just going to create a page in my pages, just my site pages library. And I'll show you one that I already created, and then I'll create one from scratch. So this is going to be my custom form page I just created like half an hour ago before I was doing this demo. And it's like question mark trip param equals conference. And it's passing from whatever's in the query string up here, it's passing it to this trip type field. So this is the result of the thing I'm going to show you how to do with this custom form. All right, so custom forms, concept, we can customize forms with info path, but we can still kind of also customize them in SharePoint Designer if you know how to kind of finagle your way around that big mess of looking at a code and flying blind. All right, so I'll create a new page. You can always just go to a site pages library in a team site and just create a new web part page that way. Custom form 2. This would be like you'd call it new form or new trip or something like that. Okay, and then once I've created it, I'm just going to exit out of that mode, and I'm going to go ahead and go over here to SharePoint Designer and open it up there. And hit Edit File, and this is where it gets ugly. Okay, so this is just a blank web part page in SharePoint Designer. And these are my web part zones. So just real quick little primer on web part zones. I want to show you what they are. See up here, header, left, middle, right, footer, those are called web part zones. So that's what you can see in here. See the names of them like that. I'm going to put my I want to put my web part in the header one, I guess. So I can just put my cursor in between these little zone template things. It's pretty much the only place that lets you put your cursor because everything else is yellow and it doesn't let you click in there. So I just hit enter a couple times. Now watch this. See, if I go to the insert tab, a lot of this stuff is grayed out, but watch, if I just hit the save button, all of a sudden this stuff lights up. So that's another like real important tidbit, is that if you go in here and you're not able to click buttons, a lot of times just hitting the save button lights the buttons up. It's just weird little nuance there. So new item form, custom list form. And this is where I want to pick which list in my site I want to create a custom form for. So like travel requests, and I only have one content type, but theoretically you could have a different form for each different if you had multiple content types. This is going to be a new item form, and sure, whatever, I'll show it the standard toolbar. And then it puts all this stuff in here. And now here's my form. All this garbledygook. I now want to be able to pass a parameter to it. So just like I did in that other web part, I created a parameter. So I'll just create a parameter here, call it destination param, and then I'll say destination like that. The part, oops, I didn't make it a query string. Haha, that's important. So the part that I put in right here, the word, is going to be the part like question mark destination equals. So this is the word that it will expect for me to be using in my URL when I'm sending that parameter. Okay, and then I could put a default value if I wanted to. All right, so now I have a parameter. Now I need to pass the parameter to the destination field. So the destination field is really, originally when I created this list, it was the title field. So in here, it just says title, like that's the word that I'm going to see in here. Whatever the name of a field is when you first create it, that's what it's going to show when you're dealing with data view web parts. How do you know that? Like, how do I know later on maybe somebody else created this list and I have no way of knowing what they did, you know, what they called the fields originally? I can go to my list settings and, oops, that's really zoomed in. All right. And I can see destination. See, when I hover over it, you see at the very bottom of the screen, it's got this field equals title. So anything that I hover over in here and I see field equals in the URL, that's what it was originally called when the column was created. That's why I try to, when I create columns, I try to create them with nice, neat names, not using a bunch of weird characters, because if I ever have to deal with it in a data view web part, then it's easier to deal with, and it doesn't have like all this big ugly stuff like that with a space. All right, I've got my title field and I want to pass the parameter to it. So what I'm going to do is look at my blog post that I wrote on how to do that when I wrote it in 2010. And here's the field, so this is the title field, and I'm going to change this part to, now the way I did it when I wrote this blog post in 2010 was really easy. I went to the Insert tab and I chose text box like this. When you do that in 2013, nothing happens. At least I wasn't able to make anything happen. So I'm going to manually type this stuff in here. So instead of SharePoint form field, it's going to be ASP text box. And then run at equals server, and let's see, field name equals title, and then I have to add in here text equals. So this is going to be the default value. Text is the default value. So text equals, and I want the default value to be whatever parameter I'm passing to it, right? So I go and do a $, and then my destination param. So whatever I named the parameter is what I have to type here. So this is important. I actually did this wrong when I was practicing this in the demo just a few minutes ago, right before this. I wrote, like, I had destination param was the name of the parameter, and then destination. I wrote the wrong one in here. So let me see. I'll just save this and show you what I'm talking about, because this will give you a big, giant web part error when you try and view your page like that. Okay, so I've got parameters. See, destination param is what I called it, and the query string variable is just the word destination. So you have to put the actual name of the parameter in here. Okay, makes sense? Now let's see if this actually works. Custom form 2. Let me get rid of all this stuff out here. I just want to refresh this page. I'm just going to refresh it with sending no parameter to it. Look how cool that is, a custom form. All right, and it's kind of ugly, but watch this. Let's see. Oh, yay! Golf clap. Let's see. Oh, Al says my company doesn't use publishing sites as a possible wiki page as well. This is a web part page. This is not a publishing site. It's probably possible with wiki pages. I just absolutely cannot stand wiki pages. I like web part pages instead. So I recommend creating a web part page. Yeah. So if you could actually just create a whole document library and just have web part pages in it if you wanted to, Al. When you create a new document library, click the Advanced button, and for the template selection, instead of using like Microsoft Word, just choose web part page, And that way you could have a whole library where you could just create web part pages for purposes like this, like dashboards. Or you could just go to the existing site pages library and do the new drop down and it will give you a web part page. All right. So that's how I can pass a parameter to a form. Pretty cool. All right. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is maybe I can put them together. So let's look at a couple other things that we can do here in the data view web part potentially. You have some of this stuff, like you have this inline editing concept. Now inline editing is not going to work very well for just a single item. Inline editing is something that used to be in SharePoint 2010 that you could turn on just in the regular view settings in the browser, but then that doesn't exist anymore in 2013 in your view settings. I actually want to show you another way that you can do inline editing in SharePoint 2013. So I'm going to go ahead and take this form first of all, and I'm going to export this web part off to a file. All right, and then it's going to have me save this .web part. I think I can do this from the browser too. I can go to the top right corner of that web part and hit export. But I'm just going to save this to my desktop, web part. I'm going to call it custom travel. And now I can take that and put it somewhere else in SharePoint. So let's go to so I created it on a web part page. So that's another good use for web part pages is you can create it there and then, you know, implement it somewhere else. I can create another web part page and put that, like that view that I created for travel requests that has just the old school view. I could put that on a web part page and also that form. Let me do that real quick. So I'll just create a new web part page. I'm going to take this form though and show you the other way that I can export a web part like that. You can't do this export thing on regular 2013 views that aren't like this old school view. So I just showed you how to export a web part from within SharePoint Designer, and I'm showing you how to export a web part from within just the browser. And where did it go? It didn't like prompt me to save it or anything. That's not normal. Oh, there it goes. Save as. And put that on my desktop too. Okay, now I've exported these two web parts. Now I'll create a nice, neat, another. I love web part pages. And I'll just call it like a dashboard or something. Test dashboard. And I'll put it in my site pages. So whenever you create a web part page, it lets you put it in whatever library you want to. Okay, add a web part, and I'm going to go import one of those web parts I created and that I put on my desktop. Start up web part. Travel request is the list. Upload. And then I got to hit add web part again and add it to the page, and let's see what that looks like. All right, so there's I'm not passing a parameter yet, right? Then I'll add another web part, and I'm going to upload the other one. Custom travel, and that's my form. And then I'll show you the inline editing thing. Which one was it? You know what I'm going to do is sometimes if you just refresh these, then it'll clear out that little uploads thing. Let me just refresh my page. There we go. Upload. Custom travel. That way I'm going to know I have the right one, and I don't have two things in there with the same name. Okay, now I just I'm going to drag that one up above the other one. Okay, if you can't drag web parts, you can go into the settings. Like if it's taking up too much space and you can't like see to be able to move them up and down, you can change the zone index and it will move it up and down for you. Another little tidbit about rearranging web parts. Okay, now I've got the list and the form. Let's try passing a parameter to it. Dashboard, question mark, destination equals, and magic happens. Let's see. Yay, look at that. Okay, so now it's showing me the travel request related to Austin, and it's also giving me the ability to quickly create a travel request that has the destination of Austin. Now I can also go, and I showed in my blog post that you can go hide, like if you don't want them to see that, like in a redundant way, like you don't want them to have to see Austin in that box when you're passing the parameter, then you can go hide it. See, you can do this style visibility equals hidden, because you don't want to delete the whole field, because then you wouldn't be able to pass the parameter to it. But that's another thing that you can do to hide it from the form so they wouldn't see this part. Make sense? Any questions? I'll let you guys type your questions, and I'm going to go on to the whole inline editing thing. See if I can remember how to do this. Okay, I'm going to create another new page in my pages, site pages. Also, any questions about how you would pass the parameter as well. Okay, files, web part page, and this is going to be test inline editing. This one this is the part that I have the least polished out of all this, so bear with me here. Okay, site pages, and I have to refresh that. No, don't make me refresh it. Okay, that wasn't too painful. Okay, edit the file, and go. It's a certain way that you have to insert your list in here. So I'm going to try to insert my, try is the key word here. I'm going to try to insert my travel request list in here as with the inline editing, which means that you would be able to have all of your rows of data, and you would be able to control which fields someone could, like, it's kind of like datasheet view, but you have tighter control over what fields people are going to be able to edit there. Okay, yeah, that's the pain of refreshing apparently in Office 365, is it takes 5 minutes. Does anybody have any examples or uses or questions about inline editing, or like you used to use it for something and then it disappeared, or maybe people didn't like it in 2010, that's why they removed it, or maybe they couldn't figure it out, figure out how to make it work with HTML5. Not sure. Okay, I'm going to keep trying here. Click on something else and click back, and maybe it'll come back. So what I've done already is I showed you how just a regular view, a 2013 just list or library view, when you open it up in SharePoint Designer, it's very limited as to what you can do. You can't really do anything to it in SharePoint Designer, but then if you create like this old school view, not using the default style, then you can do a little bit more with it. So now I'm going to show you yet another way, like even more old school, old school way that you can insert a list on here, and it's very ugly. It's not very ugly, but it looks different. It doesn't have the pretty polished look that some of the newer stuff has. All right. Insert. See, remember, I'm going to hit the save button to make it give me some stuff here. Data view, and then I'm going to do, let me think, how did I do this? I'm going to try this. I don't remember if this was the right way to do it, though. Data source details. Yeah, no, that wasn't it. I have to go into test inline editing, edit file in advanced mode, And then here's my web part zone. Okay, so to figure out the right place to put my cursor, I have to put it inside of a here and see if it gives me what I need here. Yes, I want to break it away from the site definition. See, it looks like I'm getting more here. Oh, come on, good Lord. So this should give me a list of all my lists and libraries right here. And that is what is going to give me the ability to do like this whole different way of doing a data view. I tried the other day to go in here, like I created data sources, and I was trying to figure out a way to do like in 2010 and like the older versions of SharePoint, I was showing how you can create data sources off of web services and then create a data view web part off of a web service and be able to show that in there. But for some reason, it doesn't really work like that, and it doesn't let you do that anymore. I couldn't get it to work. Oh, another thing that's real important that I wanted to point out, I wrote a whole blog post about it, about the hack. So once SharePoint 2013 came out and SharePoint Designer 2013, I wrote a blog post about this hack that you can still open and do data view web parts in SharePoint 2013 using SharePoint Designer 2010. And then they came out with a fix later, like a just sort of Windows update that breaks that. So when you try to open up a 2013 page in SharePoint Designer 2010, it doesn't work anymore. The hack to that is basically you have to uninstall and reinstall SharePoint Designer 2010, and then it will let you open up and do data view web parts in SharePoint 2013, and you can actually see what you're doing. But then the next day, the next time your computer gets updates, it will break again, and you have to uninstall SharePoint Designer 2010 and reinstall it again. So that's what I've done in like one or two cases where I absolutely needed to, like somebody, the customer was using SharePoint 2010 and upgraded, and I need to go and make a couple of tweaks to a data view web part or something like that. That's what I've done in the past.
Laura, I put the link that Anna was asking for in the chat window.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Old school data view. Oh, I did a power hour on data view web parts. No, wait. This is today's power hour. I was going to say I didn't do a power hour on data view web parts yet.
You're right.
All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is insert my list now that it actually will let me do it. And I think this is the right. No, it's not. See, certain things don't light up in here, but it might just be because I don't have my cursor in the right place, but I don't think it is. See, it's like this very weird sort of like it's buried in there, and once you get to it, you'll see inline editing in here. It'll actually show in the ribbon. Hold on, I was just going to flip over to the Design tab real quick. If you guys are on SharePoint 2010 though, and you want to do inline editing, there's I just want to kind of point out real quick, if you're doing this and you can actually see what you're doing, and you can go to this little data view preview thing, and when you have inline editing turned on, it will have actual options here to edit what the different inline editing screens look like when you're editing an item versus displaying an item and stuff like that. It'll have those as options, so then you can actually see what that edit inline item page will look like and go modify it. This is another thing you can do, like the no matching items template. You know how when a list or library has that little, like if you have nothing showing in your web part or on your view, it says there are no items in this view. You know that little message? That this little no matching items template is how you can go modify what that message says too. So you can go to that template and do that. So let me hit undo real quick and try this other way. Hold on. See, here's my travel request right here. So when I went to insert my data in here, it gave me, now it's got my current data source travel request. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my cursor back where I had it. I'm going to put my cursor over here. Okay, see in the data source details. I'm going to pick my destination. my trip start, trip end, requester, let's see, not requester, trip type, status, I'll do that. Insert selected fields as. Okay, here it is. So I have multiple item view right here, or I have multiple item form. Multiple item form is going to be if I want everything to automatically be inline editing. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'll do multiple item form, and then I'll do one where, and I'll just preview it for you real quick, and then show the other one. So I'll hit save. See, there's inline editing now. And oh gosh, no, it doesn't like that. I promise I've gotten this to work before. So I did multiple item view. So I hit undo. So let's do that again. Let's see. Da-da-da. I'll just do destination and make sure it works. See, it inserts. See, this looks more like what we dealt with like back in the days of SharePoint 2007. This is like a whole different code set here. Okay, I'll save that. Like I said, this part is the least polished out of this whole demo that I was going to do. Yeah, that didn't work. Oh crap. I think it has to do with the page too, like the actual page that I'm on. Let me try that real quick. I've got like 3 minutes left. What the heck, why not? Okay, go to Site Pages. I'll do a new page, just an ASPX page like that. And yes, I want to open in advanced mode. Yes, I want to insert a web part zone. Got to have a web part zone. Those are important. Web part. Here's the beginning of my web part zone. And insert data view. No, I'm going to go over here. Destination. I'm probably confusing the hell out of everybody. Multiple item view. And save and hit F12 to try and do that in the browser. No, it doesn't. I put it in the wrong place in the code. Like this web part manager is supposed to be first, and I inserted it in the wrong place. See? Crap. See, I don't know enough about code. See, this web part manager has to be there first. It looks like this web part zone doesn't have like an end to it. Is that my imagined thing? No, here it is.
Line 20 is your end.
So that needs to be under the web part manager thing?
No, the web part manager should be able to just sit wherever. You want
See,
to put
it says the web part zone can only exist on a page what contains must be placed before any web part zones. But when it generated it, it didn't put it before the web part zone.
You should be able to just move that up above.
That's stupid. Why wouldn't it just put it in the right place? Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
No problem.
Now I'm going to try one more time.
A lot of times that auto-inserted code is inserted wherever your cursor is on the page, but not always.
Oh. Okay.
That's why I like Design View a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, and Ann Lovelace wants to know if you could, at some point in the future, do a version of this where you're doing aggregation of into this kind of data view from multiple libraries or lists.
Use the content search web part. I'm serious. Like, don't try and do this, because just use the content search web part in 2013, because there's no reason to go through all this pain. Okay, here, this is very ugly. This has no master page. I just created a blank ASPX page, see? So this is very ugly, but it shows me my fields at least, all right? So what I would do with this is I would I could take this web part and I can turn on inline editing. It's time to stop. So I could say like show edit item links, and then when I turn on inline editing, see, I can go to this edit template, and that will give me the code for what it looks like when I'm editing a row. So, and I can also just probably insert the master page, attach the master page to it, right, Ryan? So it will look prettier?
Yeah.
All right, well, we got to wrap it up. Okay, next week, Kevin, can you give a little brief synopsis of what you're doing next week while I keep playing with this?
Next week we're going to be talking about having the ability to implement global navigation across site collections via managed navigation, managed metadata navigation.
Okay, cool. Oh yeah, it doesn't want to attach my master page. So let me just show you real quick what inline editing looks like, and go. See, it's got the little, remember this from previous versions? So the trick though with the inline editing is that I can edit something and I can type, I can change what the value is in these fields, but with the little edit template thing in here, in SharePoint Designer, I had the ability to edit actually what fields are editable and stuff when they are editing them in line like that. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but if I take this web part and just export it out, then when I go put the web part on some other page in SharePoint, it will look normal. It will look pretty, like it won't have that big ugly white thing. I don't think I really have time to do that, but I can try real quick. Go to my site pages, and I'll go here and see if it lets me insert that web part that I just created. I think that's kind of what I did in my web part hack, data view web part hack thing, what blog post that I wrote when 2013 first came out. I wrote about how it looks really ugly when you're doing it like that, and how to attach the master page, and how to export the web part and stuff like that. So let's try that. Now it's not going to look perfect. See, it's not going to look like an actual, like a regular view that you're used to, but at least there are your fields, and there's your little inline editing. So now I can go edit this row real quickly. Yay, finally, golf clap. So that's inline editing, and that's how you do it. It's just, it uses the very, very, not the old school 2010, but the old school like 2007 type of web part where you have to like dig through here and hack into it and figure out a way to let you insert it so that it actually will have some of those options that you don't have with the other ones. All right, let me answer a couple of questions real quick. If you guys have to go to meetings or something, feel free to leave. But Carlos says, can you use the no items template to show nothing if the list is empty? Yes. Or you can make it show something like a specific message of yours that you want it to say. It's just harder because you're in code view doing it. Anne says, could you do it data view or whatever to use showing two libraries in one view? Yes, but I would not do that. I would use the content search web part and just put the URLs, just put both URLs in the content search web part. And go look at that Power Hour I did on how to make a content search web part look more like, like a library or something. It would be a display template. But data view web parts merging two libraries is possible, but it's a huge pain, and I really don't recommend it. Yeah. So yeah, that is a very common thing that people want to do, though, is display multiple libraries in one web part. Does that make sense? Hopefully, yeah. I think I did one of my old data view web part videos on how to do, on how to put together multiple data sources in one. I just don't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but wow, still 24 viewers. That's awesome, and we went over. So thanks everybody for coming. Next week I'm going to be at MVP Summit in Seattle, Redmond at Microsoft, and Kevin's going to be doing his Power Hour then, so I won't be here. I'm going to miss it, but you guys have fun without me, and thanks everybody for coming. Over and out.